Oh, the whole West Coast is burning right now.
Yeah, it is. And the East Coast has
Okay.
3 hurricanes going after it.
I know. Oh,
Yeah.
dear me.
And then you got a dictator
Yeah, it's
threatening
so good
nuclear
to have
war.
you.
So what do you see going on with Irma?
It's all following a path of karma. So it is, if it goes south towards Mexico, you know that the negatives are still fighting each other really bad, and that there's going to be more storms that come up the pike that they're going to have to battle, because every time they try to fight the system seriously, it boomerangs back and hits them in the head in another way. If it goes over Cuba, direct over Haiti, Cuba, then it is a direct time wave storm onto the haunting of Cuba. Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic are the center of the dark forces, and it's where a lot of the negative, Puerto Rico, all that.
Really?
So then it goes from there, it goes into the Gulf, and then it goes up the inside of the Gulf Coast, and then goes up the Appalachian Mountains and dumps on Washington, D.C. So it's an entire eastern seaboard could have a Category 5 20-foot storm surge and 20 inches of rain, even if the thing never actually touches shore.
Whoa.
Right.
Well, there are some models showing it going, actually there's like a jet stream highway that goes up along the East Coast.
Yep.
And that those are the models I've been seeing where it's going to go up parallel to Florida, South Carolina, and they're concerned. Yeah.
So a lot of times they will actually go over the tip of the Keys and enter the Gulf, and then reverse course and go back over Florida, and then up. That's a worst case scenario. Right. And I believe we are headed to the worst case scenario, but it's a matter of if they give up energy and saying the system gives up the energy that the machine is coming to take, then the storm will dissipate and there'll be average damage, average flooding.
Well, that's kind of what happened with Matthew last year.
Yes, because the good guys were doing good things then. You got to realize weather warfare it's not one country. Every country's doing it.
Yeah.
And to say that it's not necessarily a moratorium on it. The amount of energy that it takes to alter a system that is so spun up is out of control. It's very easy to detect when you've got to activate, 10,000, generators from, deep underground to power something that's supposed to change a system that's, massive, entire world system. In the old days, it didn't take a lot of energy. It takes more and more and more energy now to change the system because it's so wound up tight.
Yeah, it's like a trend in a chart, and to keep the trend going, you need to have like exponential volumes of
energy
to maintain the trend, and it's artificial. Hey, all the I've done this series with regions of the world, and Andrew talked about the earthquakes and the pyramids harvesting energy. So is there an escalation with the earthquakes to sort of repay, to dissipate these storms? Is there a relationship with the earthquakes?
More than likely, this hurricane will trigger a series of earthquakes after it's done, after the water saturated the ground again. So those areas that are having lots of sinkholes, so on and so forth, because the whole water system's been changed. It's not allowed to be its natural processing. Water's got to be redistributed, and now what we're seeing is mass redistribution of water, which is what? Reprogramming of the very essence of what's in that area.
Yeah.
Now that's the biggest programmed water.
Let me ask you this, Andrew. In an area, and I'm thinking about all of the water weight that just hit Texas too. In addition to that, how does all of the chemicals in the water that are leaching from everything that got hit and busted open by the water because
Nasty.
Houston is the petrochemical industry capital of the world.
That's not necessarily
How does that affect the programming of the water with all of these toxins?
That's not the big deal. The big deal is all the cars, trucks, and buses that are at full gas tanks that were flooded out.
Yeah.
You could easily 2 million cars underwater now, each with an average of 10 gallons of gas. And if it's a truck, an average of 200 gallons of diesel.
Yeah.
Okay? There's the real thing. It's how much does it blanket? Okay? If it's in certain areas, it can be okay. Is the groundwater going to be affected? Absolutely, it's going to be affected. But if you have another storm and another storm and another storm that come upon it and keep filtering it out, and it goes back out to the ocean, gets caught up in silt and bound up like it's like a normal process, and we might have some issues. But really, it's a long term, 20, 30 years down the road before you even think about water poisoning, because it takes that long to get water poisoning. Benzene-based poisoning from all the petrochemicals. Now, I was saying about earthquakes. There will be a series of shallow to mid-level earthquakes that come after the storm. One, because it'll be a heavy, very low-pressure system that is above water, that is creating a new wave action, that is pushing against the continental shelf, that is pushing against the Appalachian Mountains, that is now being filled with water. So it's like pushing out a dry sponge, and all of a sudden you add water to a dry sponge. What happens? Moves.
Yeah.
Right.
Gets real squishy.
Gets real squishy, exactly. So that's what you can see the eastern seaboard as, real squishy.
And then with this other storm coming, because the eastern seaboard also got dumped on by Harvey too. That's still moving through the eastern seaboard right now.
Yes, it is. So now it's going a little more south. So Tuesday, so now it's not going as north as it was. So I'm going to look here.
It's interesting you're talking about the cars and the volume of cars, because I know there's a huge oversupply in the creation of cars.
Uh-huh.
I know the car companies are really, they're trying to incentivize to get people to buy new cars and stuff, and it's getting, to the end of a trend on many levels, and they're seeing a benefit from this, from insurance purposes.
Yeah. So look at this caption. Hurricane Irma crawling west. Northern Lewite Islands closely monitoring it. The hurricane is only affecting the fish now. Duh. Yeah, it is affecting the fish.
Let's see. Oh my gosh. Well, it's interesting what you said earlier, because one of the things I have noticed here in the last 18 to 24 months are a lot of reports of new species, marine species.
Uh-huh. That's what I just was saying. They're teleporting from one frequency of time and brought into now.
Yeah. And even on the ground, even on the land, I saw a really cute new moth that they found. Looked like an alien. It was so cute. Oh my God. I mean, just you kind of wanted to cuddle with this moth. But yeah, it's interesting what it makes sense what you're saying there, and I know how vortex energy works because I've constantly got one going around me, and I use this vortex for clearing stuff and creation. It's when I don't have a vortex go. When I've tried to shut this vortex down, it doesn't work.
Nope, you can't. It's a process of remedy and resolve. That celestial consciousness itself is guiding the wormhole that's connecting it to the sun, and the water is the tool of changing the program of the hologram. They're making a direct manifestation of the hologram that is altering the hologram from within. That's why it's a low pressure system. An insanely low pressure system.
Yeah. I like how you talk about the new life will be offered an avenue or a life that doesn't add up to the equation of the reality, and the hologram for most people that are they accommodate it. It's not going to add up to them. It's like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't a fish that's supposed to be here now. This is something that's 50 million years old, you know? It's like, that doesn't add up. So it might challenge the fabric of their reality construct in there. Then, you know what I mean? Like, I can get that. It'll chip away at that, you know, holding on to the reality, you know?
Well, one of the hardest things, you know, especially, you know, I mean, I'm in my 50s. I mean, you really, it's hard to change your spots and change after you get 40, things get really settled in. And, you know, this has been a real process for me because when my light body activated in 2012, especially when I was in a peak state of consciousness, I'm like, okay, this is a hologram. I'm on the holodeck. Where's the panel? Open the doors. But understanding how that functions has been really tricky because I've been in this phase for a while now of what is real and what, not just what is real, but what does real mean in this hologram, in this creation. And, you know, I have my individual reality bubble that's existing in this realm with other reality bubbles. But what coming at me, especially through technology, is real. And that's kind of at a point where I'm at right now. Why I'm not publishing a lot on my blog is I'm just questioning the nature of this reality and what is real, what's disinformation, what's programming, and how I can really help people, you know, because I just spent 2 years on this Blue Avian thing, and it appears to be a big psyop in many respects, you know?
It doesn't need to be anything other than something that's no longer a part of your focus.
Right.
Different way of looking at it. Okay? It got you out of the house. It got you motivated. There was a good part to it.
Oh, there was a real good part. You know, for about 6 months, I was flying really high. A little too high. Icarus got the wings burned. But yeah, it does, you know, it does bring me back to what's real in this realm and what does real mean.
I tell you what I do in it, like, you know, for me, like, there's nothing, failure doesn't exist, all right? It's just an experience with data.
Exactly.
And say I go through something and the outcome isn't what I hope for or anything like that. When I can sort of, review myself at certain stages, and I usually get senses about certain things, and I might have made choices based on the senses that I had at the time, which I thought were, you know, this is telling me this is true, but it was actually saying, nah, this is bullshit. But I read it wrong. Yeah. So it's like I take on board the experience of what I did and then integrate it with what I do going forward. And then it's that backwards bicycle that Andrew talked about early 2013. It's like the wiring in me wasn't right. The wiring was giving me a good indicator when it was actually a red light, you know, and that's all cool. It's just with that experience, I can rewire myself with it. And then I test myself with that wiring. You know, what you've got the articles and stuff, and I know you're in that transition phase where you're integrating the experience and you're being responsible, you know. So it's just a matter of like integrating what you've been through, and to me, it's like you have to go through that shit to really be solid, you know. It's like this, the metaphor of the Houston thing with people being challenged. It's like, to me, comfort breeds complacency, and humanity is complacent. So it's time to learn.
Yep.
Well said. Well said.
Just
Well,
just be you, you know, just be you. Don't
well,
worry about
it's
the
yeah.
outcomes and stuff like that. Just be you, and you'll find yourself, you know.
Well, I think part of my issue, the last few months has been reaching, and you and I, Andre, have discussed this about, information overload, data overload.
Yeah.
And, my blog in 6 years, I posted over almost 14,000 posts. That's data overload, and I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just trying to let the data go. And you had said something earlier today on your show, Andrew, about overanalyzing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I'm a Sagittarius. That's kind of, we're the thinkers.
So get this. I just was checking on Hurricane Irma. Andre, when we were talking about those storms that went up the river and over Lake Erie, back down the river, one model shows that actually happening for Irma.
I
Well,
just like Annette yesterday in like the second recording, because we went through like past major hurricanes. Like the kamikaze in Japan was about when the weather whipped up and defeated the Mongols trying to invade Japan in 1270, and stuff in 1870s in Hong Kong that hit all the opium sort of stuff, and there was one in the Caribbean in the 1780s that smashed everything and all the pirates and stuff, and then there was a 1814 in Washington where it defeated the English, and the English gave up the next day. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, Andrew, this brings me to a question that kind of relates to Don's question about mass meditations.
Uh-huh.
On these storms, say when we've got something headed towards Hawaii or like Irma, how much effect can people who are working with the weather wizards, how much effect can we really have on these systems?
Individually, a lot. As a group, virtually zero.
Really?
It's an individual relationship.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Too many light workers want to throw everyone together that like we're all equal. No, we're not all equal.
Well, what I've done in the past, and this is how I handled these calls, and it's pretty much just been when stuff's headed for Hawaii. I've put out a call to action to light workers, hippies, everybody who's into this, and just ask them to do their thing. And it's not organized where we all do it at once with a certain prayer, a certain meditation. It's just like, do it, just do it.
How many do you think actually do it?
Good question. Very good question. I usually get a fairly good response from people. 20 to 40? I don't know. That's a good question because I don't really count. I just throw it out there and do my own thing and trust that others are doing theirs.
What you're saying is different than what Don was asking. Very
Well, yeah, somewhat different, but it's still how can we affect something out there that's going on?
Well, first thing first, you are not going to step on another's journey. So when a person thinks they're going to go and change a storm, they're stepping on everyone's journey. Some people need that storm as part of their resolution.
Yeah.
There might be a rat down the street that needs to drown from that storm.
Okay.
So thinking that you have control over the whole of nature instead of working with nature to understand why this storm is in existence is a process of remedy and resolve. What is remedy and resolve? Balancing of the energy. We can't physically do it ourselves. So the Earth has given us these wonderful tools at the unlimited point of view. You know how much energy is in that hurricane?
How much?
Type it in Google. Probably enough to power the entire world for 10,000 years.
Whoa.
Right. That's how much energy is in there.
Yeah, I guess like the purpose of doing these recordings with Andrew is that it's to give the greater purpose of why this stuff's going on. And I'd get out of the way. I'd say, go for it. Go for it.
We got to stop validating the 3D matrix and validate the other points of view.
It's like if it goes into Houston and clears 1 million ghosts and demons,
Right.
it's like, and so that grid of that city no longer has the hold on that region of the earth that requires the other regions to compensate, which they don't have the energy for. Then what potential dream times might there be in a post-hurricane city, you know?
And where people aren't worried about each other, they just want to survive and get along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unity consciousness.
That's right.
Well, you know, I will say when I work these storms, one of the things that I work into the equation is cleansing. Because that's how I see them too. You know, I see them as cleansing mechanisms.
I'll tell you the way I perceive it now after I've done this stuff with Andrew and that. It's like there's a greater component that I don't know for the reason of this.
Yeah.
So I actually support that. My input is there's a greater purpose I'm not aware of, so I'm totally in support of that, and let's see what gets revealed. You know? So it's like,
Yeah.
I trust the greater appreciation on this level of the planet knowing what needs to be done, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
I
do.
I'm okay with it, like the challenge that people go through. It's an opportunity. So, and I'm not denying death if it's needed because it's a process. You know, it might be the end of someone that's time is up, and then they have a review, and then they come back and they be someone. You know what I mean? There's all these layers that you have to factor in. You know, that it might be the time for this person. They've achieved what they needed to achieve this lifetime for them to get, you know, be a full, you know, psychic warrior in their next life that Earth needs. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally with you on that. I don't have any. I've faced death enough that I don't have issues with it. That's it. Yeah.
You got the mama want to protect their kids sort of thing, and it's like, you know what? You got to pick yourself up sometimes. You got to learn how to be stronger. You know, there's purpose.
Right, you got to have that suck it up, Buttercup.
Literally, it's a massive buttercup sucker.
Well, you know, I mean, just because I may try to, you know, calm a storm down doesn't mean that I'm trying to control anything or it's a control factor.
Yes, it does. Remember, everything comes down to scale and size what you're thinking. You are thinking at a big scale, therefore you are controlling something. You have to see the Earth as running the system and that you're just adding your energy to the Earth to make it go faster.
But I mean, you don't live here on the corner of this island with me with like tons of dead trees around your house. It's just
now you're talking something different. You're talking making yourself feel better.
Well,
that's
it's
protection.
You know, take for instance, I've had a couple of occasions where I wasn't paying attention to the weather, and all of a sudden, you know, there's a storm bearing down on the island. And this happened last year. I remember one time in particular where, you know, it was on us, and all I did was just go out around the property, talk to the trees, and asked everything to fall not in the direction of the house. You know, it just
Control. Control.
hey, you know, it's my reality bubble. Shouldn't I have a little control over it?
But the thing is, you might actually draw it to you. It might be like, nah, that needs a branch.
You got to bribe trees.
No, because you know when I was sitting over on Kauai trying to control the storm over there as a cell was bearing down, you know, my car was still here on this property in the carport, and I thought I was going to be able to get it back to Kauai, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, and I put so much love into this house and taking care of it and remodeling it, and just, you know, I've done a lot here that I was just, you know, sitting over there just going, just don't hit the house, don't hit the car, you know. And she said that the trees came down like matchsticks around the house. Nothing hit the house.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong.
Nothing.
You deserve to be okay. That's the thing.
You got your miracle. You got your miracle.
Yeah.
You're important. You're important. We need you. Earth needs you, my dear.
You can get out the driveway, but at least they didn't hit the house or my car. So. She's like, when I talked to my landlord, she's like, oh my God, Annette, if you still lived here, I don't know when you'd be able to leave your house. There are so many trees. And I'm just like, oh, thank God I'm on Kauai. So yeah, it's, you know, certainly there's a little control there when it comes to wanting to protect property and stuff and protect lives.
That is ancestral magic and not weather magic. Big, massive difference.
So what's the difference? I mean, how is that
ancestral resolution instead of collected storm clouds exchanging programmed water in mass, erasing a surface system or a subsurface system through overprogramming or reprogramming of the water. Big difference. Think of it as a wildfire, except it's a hurricane.
Yeah, good point. Good analogy there. So when I'm working with the hurricanes, of course I do work with the water. I work with the wind. Would that be the best route? Is to go in and program the water?
No,
the ocean.
The pressure, the lowest part of the pressure. That is where collections of wind spirits are. Those are the thunder beings.
Ah. So the thunder beings are connected with the wind spirits?
They're virtually one and the same. Think of the thunder being as an ascended wind spirit.
But isn't thunder born from lightning?
No, not always.
Really?
Uh-huh. All different.
How do you get thunder without lightning?
Very careful. Ball lightning.
Hey, I've got the answer for you right now because we had it happen 2 a.m. yesterday morning in my city.
Yeah, show her that link.
Yeah, have a look at this in it. Ironic.
Yeah,
just
blow your mind.
You look at the comments. People, it's like crack the reality for a little bit.
Mysterious tremor.
It was like, I was here sitting making videos at 2 a.m. my time, and it felt like, I don't know if you've ever been near drag racing cars and their engines throb and it just goes through you. It was like the whole reality was throbbing and it was going through you. It was unusual. Because I've lived through earthquakes and it shakes like the house, but you don't feel it in you, you know? And it went on for 20 seconds. Like, it just like, you're sitting here and it's like, I'm getting chest vibrations. It's like the air in my lungs is reverberating.
Was that a compression event? So you're talking about pressure. So was that a compression event?
But it sounded like thunder.
And it sounded like thunder.
It's like just
Interesting.
this rumbling all over the place, like, and I've lived through like tremor earthquakes, like 2 and 3. There was a 4 here many years, like a few years ago, and it was like the house rattled and you could feel it. It was just this rumble, but it didn't go through you like this. It just like totally penetrating you.
Interesting.
Reality altering. So as I said, there's different forms of thunder and lightning that can come into existence, like ball lightning.
Yeah.
Okay? It's all different spirit energy. So
Interesting.
when you're working with the eye of the
haven't
storm
seen-
is where you can find the collected collections of storm cloud beings who are ancestors at the earth elemental level. They are what creates the hologram itself. They're the weavers and the reweavers of the hologram. Now, the hologram is affected by technology. DNA is an instrument of expression and experience. The storm cloud, the collected collection of storm cloud beings, are trying to get us as a consciousness on the surface to create a unity grid. That's their purpose. Anti-weather technologies to keep us from coming together as a collective. So when you're working at the eye of the storm, that's where all the beings that are trying to make us become a collective are working.
Okay.
Back to the whole Earth grid through them.
Interesting. Yeah.
Jump in the vortex and say, I'm here to be a service to the fifth world of peace.
Yeah, and that's, that at one point, sometime last year, I really got into going into the eye of the hurricane. And, it's kind of been a progression over the last couple years. But yeah, getting into the barometric pressure and, I work it all the way. I work the waters, the barometric pressure, and then I started going into the eye, talking to the eye. I didn't really listen to what it had to say to me, though. It was just kind of like, just calming. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That kind of helps me.
Maybe next time you do it, all right? Tune in and instead of wanting to calm it, say, go to work, sunshine, clear. Do what
Here to be
you
of
need to do.
service. How can I help?
Yeah, like empowering
help.
to clear on a level that humanity needs on the surface of Earth.